There is one Laylatul Qadr, but we, if do it, for example, according to the marja in another night, we may get the reward of a'mal. But to get actually the benefit of Laylatul Qadr, you have to be, doing special things in that Laylatul Qadr. So if you are talking about your wazifa, your sawab, your reward, no problem. You get it according to your marja, inshallah. But if you want to really make sure that you don't miss Laylatul Qadr, then you can, keep both nights, for example, awake and do a'mal. But I don't advise this as a community. For example, if in every masjid we start having 6 nights of Qadr, as a community I don't advise, because this is in itself affecting Laylatul Qadr and makes people gradually lose their interest. Because if you do something too much, then people say, okay, I'm not going to know which one is done, so I am not going to come to mosque at all. So as a community, I think you should see what the majority want, or some people come these nights, some people come. Don't force people to come 6 nights. Maybe you give facility to people, but as an individual, especially 23rd, because the chance of 23rd is more than any other night. 21 and 23rd more than 19, and then 23rd more than 21. So if 23rd you can keep 2 nights, inshallah, awake and ihya, inshallah, would be helpful. But the main thing is that alertness and appreciation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inshallah help us.
Maulana, just a follow up on the thing that you said about Imam al-Hujjah, that
Yes.
the Laylatul Qadr descend on him. So we know that in the case of the Prophet, that the Quran descended on him all in one time at first, and then it started descending the revelation of verse by verse. Is it the same case of Imam Hujjah, because he's a Ma'soom, he already knows everything, and then every Laylatul Qadr something, or is it something new to him? Thank you.
The things which are new are the affairs of the next 12 months in a detailed way. In a detailed way, they come down, and this is why you have to be praying, and not only in Laylatul Qadr. You should, because in Laylatul Qadr decisions are finalized. You have to do 19, 21, because you want to have the best finalized in 23rd. If we start, doing preparation from 23rd, by the time you reach, Baka Ya Allah, everything is finished. In 19 and 21. And this is why in some hadith says in 19 the things are decided, then in 21, for example, finalized, 23rd are signed, sealed, like this. So preparation is very important, and this is perhaps one of the reasons that they didn't tell us only one night. They wanted us to prepare.
It was mentioned that in order to attain spirituality or be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should not be too attached to the world and its materialistic aspects. How does that connect to one's preoccupation with how he or she looks? Would something like cosmetic surgery mean that this person is too concerned with the material world?
There are different cases. Sometimes maybe these surgeries are needed. Okay? Maybe sometimes not because this person is concerned about himself or herself, the way people look at that person. But sometimes it's a matter of excess, a matter of luxury. So we cannot judge. Every person should decide for himself or herself, is this something that I'm doing because it is necessary for the way, for example, people look at me, it's necessary for my respect, for my honor, or it's just something luxury. We leave judgment to people.
So the question here is, what is the definition of tawfiq? From your answer, I understand that the source of tawfiq comes from a person's action or inaction. But the ayah says, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, which implies that tawfiq comes from Allah and not the servant. Also, يَرْزُقُ مَن يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. So, does the tawfiq come from the servant or from Allah with these verses?
The tawfiq comes from Allah, but how Allah decides to give or not to give depends on what you do. Like we say, يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُضِلُّ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. But is this arbitrary? No. Thank you. It is not arbitrary. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats you based on what you want to be treated. So tawfiq comes from Allah, but there are ways to qualify yourself for tawfiq or disqualify yourself for tawfiq.
Assalamu
Salam.
alaikum. I just wanted to get some tips from you. I see this with a lot of adolescents within our communities. Like you said, their hearts have become black. They become rock. And I see this a lot with the adolescents. What tips, what guidance do you have from this?
The main reason for hearts becoming hard is hubbud dunya. Dunya can be money, can be position, can be fame, can be sex. There are different attractions for dunya. زُيَّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ, but in different forms. And we have to be very careful. Attacks are there. Don't think you are immune. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. If not from this way, from another way. You have to be always careful. A mu'min has to be watching around 360 degrees. You don't know where attack is coming. Shaitan said, I am going to attack them min bayna aydihim wa min khalfihim, and also from right, from left, and tahta arjulihim. The only thing he didn't mention was from top. Alhamdulillah, this is safe to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, from other dimensions, he's attacking. So we have to be very careful. We have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. We have to also make sure we have good friends, good associates. People very much are affected by friends, by those that they mix. The circles, the groups, the peers, the colleagues, they have impact on us. So we have to be very careful. Especially we have to be careful about those things that affects someone else's life. You know, sometimes a person wastes his life. This is zulm. But at least he doesn't affect other people. But sometimes people hurt other people. A husband can hurt the wife. A wife can hurt the husband. Sometimes the life becomes totally disaster for the other person. Sometimes you damage the life of entire family. So these are not easy things. Especially if they have nothing to protect themselves. إِيَّاكَ وَالظُّلْمَ مَنْ لَا يَجِدُ عَلَيْكَ نَاصِرًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Be very careful not to do zulm to someone who has no helper other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Have maybe a simple question for the intentions and doing things out of joy. Sometimes maybe people do things out of joy that you like to describe. Sometimes people do things because they know it's a good thing to do. how does Allah take that into account? Doing something because you know it is good to do. Maybe it's not emerging truly from your heart, but you hope that it will be counted. And does such acts train somebody or develop someone such that the next actions over time truly come from the heart as joyful actions?
Yes, like many things, we can, train ourselves. So sometimes, maybe in the beginning, doing mustahab is not very joyful. But at least it is good that you are doing this without pressure. Okay? For example, this is the night of Jummah, you want to do Du'a Kumail. Maybe you don't feel, special in that night, but still you do this mustahab. It's good because you are not forced to do it. It's not wajib to do it. Still you do it. So it is voluntary. It has impact. But inshallah, if you make this habit, it becomes easier. And when it becomes easier, then you can feel better also about it. There is a question here.
So I just wanted to ask, in terms of not being too harsh on yourself, what about muraqabah and muhasabah? How do you go about doing that without being too harsh?
We have to control ourselves. Muraqabah means to control ourselves when we are doing something. Muhasabah is to check after we did. For example, before we go to sleep, we review what we have done during the day. This is called muhasabah. But muraqabah is when I want to do something, I should be careful. Why I am doing this, how I am doing this. To have muraqabah and muhasabah are very good, very important. But everything should be done with, balance. If you become too much, checking yourself and, criticizing yourself and blaming yourself, this is not good. But most of people, of course, they don't do this to criticize themselves too much. But sometimes some people, they are very nice people, they want to do things in a perfect way. Then they become very, harsh with themselves. So as soon as it goes more than what you find reasonable among ordinary mu'mineen, you notice, you should stop. Because it's not good to be too critical of yourself. Maybe 1% of people become like this, 99%, no. But even those 1%, of course, should be not harmed by this.
There's a question here.
Sorry. What we have also in dua is that in such situations, try to, instead of thinking about yourself and problems, look at Allah's mercy. مولاي إذا رأيت ذنوبي فزعت وإذا رأيت كرمك تمعت. So sometimes ulama say, don't look down, look high. Peacock, they say peacock has very ugly legs. Okay, so when peacock looks at its legs, becomes very embarrassed, very harsh on itself. But when looks at the feathers, then becomes very joyful. So ulama say, don't look too much at your legs, at your ugly characters, because then you become hopeless. Sometimes also look at good things that Allah has given you. Balance is very important. Some people only look at the positive things and even the positive things that they don't have. They are very happy. Yes.
There's a question here that says, we always hear about the importance of zikr. And you said we have to expose ourselves in every situation, working, driving. But how to do that practically? Because saying zikr on the prayer mat 1,000 times is hard to stay focused. But because it is so important, do you have any steps we can follow to be able to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and especially to love doing dhikr after a while?
Yes. This is very good question. You know, we have to train ourselves. At the first level, the most important opportunities for dhikr is our daily prayers. These 5 times of prayer are like 5 pillars. You know? Like, for example, you charge yourself 5 times. You know, imagine you have a device that has to be charged, recharged. 5 times you fully charge it. But during the day, you should not be drained. If you see you are getting drained, go somewhere 2 minutes, 3 minutes, do some, reflection, some zikr, go back to work. In the same way that sometimes you feel you have to take a cup of tea, so you go out of office and to take a cup of tea, maybe sometime you have to take a tasbih, a zikr. Have something also in front of you to remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe a frame, maybe a sentence from Quran, that when you look at that, you are reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this way, you can make sure that gradually between these 5 prayers are also connected. So you first establish 5 pillars, and then you connect these 5 pillars with zikr, so that inshallah your entire day is full of zikr. It needs training, it needs practice. Nothing great can happen without practice, without training. But it's possible. It should come to the stage that we are constantly thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
There's another question here. Can you explain the spiritual effects of unnecessary male-female mixing? And can you explain the difference between the time of Lady Fatima Zahra Salamunallahu alayhi and present Islamic society in the West, if there is a difference?
Could you repeat?
Can you explain the spiritual effects of unnecessary male-female mixing?
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain the difference between the time of Fatima Zahra and present Islamic society in the West?
The difference between time. Unnecessary contact should be avoided, especially for young people, especially for unmarried people. It's better to have minimum contact, especially one-to-one contact should be avoided. And although you have maybe good intention, but shaitan doesn't have good intention. So shaitan will come to create trouble. And sometimes maybe one side doesn't have bad intention, the other side can have bad intention. So you don't know. So you have to safeguard yourself. And even if you are guaranteed that nothing is going to happen, but a kind of darkness can come to the heart. So we have to be careful. We are not saying people should not talk to each other, should not say salam to each other, but everything should be very formal, and especially as a reminder of Islamic virtue of haya, it's important that we keep some of our programs only for one sex. So for example, if we are Ahlul Bayt, or I don't know, Saqalain Society University, so if we have few events, at least some of the events should be kept only for sisters, for example, only for brothers. This is a good reminder that we don't lose the whole concept. Because if we never observe this gradually, then we feel that this is not needed at all. And the society around us, is so much, unfortunately, against these things that if we are not careful, we will be also affected. And then we think, oh, those people who say these things are from Middle East. Sometimes I say, we criticize sometimes some Western people. We say, they look at Muslims or Eastern countries in a negative way. Now we see that some of the Muslims who live here also looked at the people who live there in a bad way. The same arrogance is now spreading. So no one is immune. We have to be careful. So we should keep some of the things in place to remind us of those virtues.
Just to follow up on this question, oftentimes, practically speaking, one of the challenges that we have in the West is, especially in communities in the West, is the issue of marriage.
Yes.
So what happens is that the practice of most things of the religion is unfortunately not good, but the practice of the segregation is perfect. So what happens is that the males, or I don't like to use the word, the gentlemen and the ladies, the gentlemen don't know anything about the other side. They don't even know they exist. They don't even know they're there. So what happens is that they marry somebody who is from the Middle East, which is wonderful. But I had a story. My friend, we were walking in the metro, told me, I just got married from a sister in the Middle East. And in his community, they just, for the first time, made an event where everybody in that community worked together for a play. And he said, I discovered there were sisters on the other side of my community. I didn't even know them. And I wish I knew, but now I'm already married from a sister from the Middle East. So basically, not to say that if you marry someone in the Middle East it's bad. Inshallah, it's very good.
Yeah.
But my point is that there's a and then if the family structure is not strong, then what happens, and the marriage is difficult, then there seems to be it seems to be counterproductive, because on one hand you want to preserve yourself to keep Islamic values, you want to practice Islam, and then you're having a hard time forming Islamic families to be able to practice Islam. So how do we practically know that we're striking the correct balance? Is there more details that you can tell us?
We cannot tell people, mix, because then there is a chance that some of you may get married to each other later, For that, we can organize something. First of all, parents have role. So if this brother, for example, didn't know about sisters in the community, what about his mother? What about his sisters? What about his sisters-in-law? They also didn't know. So they could have, said there are people. And also, I don't say we make all the events segregated. But I'm saying, as a reminder, at least we should keep some of the events segregated so that we don't lose the whole concept. So maybe we can organize some events, especially in the community, with the supervision, with the presence of elders. Some things can be happen. But if there are just few youngsters, outside, and they go to a coffee shop and say we want to discuss our activities in university, Islamic activities. So why you discuss Islamic activities in, for example, coffee shop? Yeah. So we have to be careful. I'm not questioning anyone. I'm not judging. I'm sure many times these things can happen with good intention. But I'm saying we have to be a little bit suspicious about ourselves.
There's a question here. Sometimes when I pray, I feel like someone is holding my hand or is putting his hand on my shoulder. Could it be one of my relatives that passed away a few years ago? Is it God or just my imagination?
Yes. It can be different things. Sometimes can be imagination. which is actually many times can be imagination. But it's possible, but very unlikely that there is someone that actually. But it's possible. Most of time can be imagination. Yes.
Another written question. In the Quran it says that paradise is eternal and that no one will sin inside Jannah. If that is the case, then why did Iblis get kicked out of heaven?
That Jannah was not eternal Jannah. The Jannah in which Adam and Hawa alayhi salam were there was not eternal Jannah. Why? Because in eternal Jannah there is no shaitan. So the fact that shaitan was there, the fact that they came out of it, the fact that they made mistake shows that that was not eternal Jannah. And according to some hadith, it was a worldly Jannah. Worldly, some people say it means it was a garden in this world, but I say no, maybe not in this earth, in this planet, but dunya opposite to akhirah. But definitely was not that Jannah that mu'minin go after the day of judgment and will be there forever.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
تعقيبا على الحديث لا يزال يتقرب إلي عبدي بالنوافل حتى أحبه. هل يصح القول أنه حب الله للعبد هو أول منازل القرب؟
حب الله للعبد. Hubbullah, love of Allah in this sense is not the first station. This comes in a very advanced level because someone who reaches this is muqarrab already.
Maybe just to translate the question and answer.
The question is when we said لا يزال يتقرب إلي عبدي بالنوافل حتى أحبه, is the love for Allah the first manzil, the first station of qurb? I said it is the turning point for becoming muqarrab, but not the first station of the whole journey. Yes, maybe you can say the first station after becoming muqarrab. Yes, but it is also the last. In a sense, up to the end, this is the situation. But inside this, you can grow.
A very short question. When you mentioned Surah Al-Qadr, you say تنزل الملائكة.
Yes.
We know that tanzal means goes down. Is there a difference between tanzal and tanazzal?
Yes. Tanzilu is sulasi mujarrad. Tanazzalu, which is tatanazzalu, is bab tafa'ul, is sulasi mazid. So there is a difference between nuzul and tanazzul. What is the difference? Nuzul is general. It can be tanazzul or non-tanazzul. Tanazzul perhaps means gradual. So it's something that happens gradually. Like Quran, Allah Ta'ala says, Inzal and Tanzil are different. Inzal is daf'i, Tanzil is tadriji. Tadrij is gradual. Daf'i means at once. Salam.
In the lectures, I understood that you said that the journey towards Allah is long and there's a lot of unclarity.
Yes.
So,
If you are not having Allah as your guide, if Allah is your guide, ma awzah al-haq. It's very clear.
So I guess it's basically lack of purification that puts us on
Yes,
on
yes,
clarity, not
exactly.
Allah puts on clarity. On
Yes. Impurities that we have come before our eyes. We cannot see the truth. I also want to know now what we are going to take from here. Maybe it's good if everyone mentions what he or she is going to take. other than books.
So you want to do round quick?
Yes,
quick round?
yes, it's good.
Let's start that.
Yes.
I have one question.
Also, I am going also to have meeting with people from Ottawa, so if we can finish maybe 15-20 minutes,
You lead and you finish.
inshallah. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
As a last question, I have a question that we want to take. In most of the spiritual journeys, as other ulamas like Allama al-Iraqi, Tabatabai, they have always recommended Salat al-Layl. I just wanted you to clarify on how Salat al-Layl is going to be important, as it is like with the system of life that we have here, especially in the West, it's counterproductive. Like it's kind of against our timing schedule as living here, because we're very occupied and scheduled during the daily life. If you could explain on that, I would be very grateful.
Salatul Layl is very important, and there is a hadith which says reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-wusulu ila Allah safarun la yudraku illa bimtita'il layl. You cannot reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless you use night. You cannot find Allah only during the day. Sometimes you have to look for Allah during the night. There is a hadith that when someone sleeps whole night and doesn't think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and still claims that I love Allah, hadith says, كذب من زعم أنه يحبني فإذا جنه الليل نام عني. The one who says that he loves me or she loves me, but when night comes, he sleeps or she sleeps and forgets me. Every lover looks for an opportunity to be free with his beloved. And there is no time better than night. No disturbance, no distraction, no commitment. So it's important that we do Salatul Layl. Even mustahabat normally don't have qadha. Normally. But nawafil have qadha. So if we cannot do in the night, at least we should do during the day, or at least one rak'ah. Salatul Watr, or Shaf' wal Watr, or the young people who cannot wake up, even there is some saying that they can do it before they sleep. So we should not totally lose